Extract from the General Review of Botany Volume 24, 1913, p. 31. The silphium of the ancients is definitely d'en palm, laudoici Seychellerum de labilirtib, by m.a.t. Vercoutres in December 1908, in a work entitled, Identification of Silphium. 1. I made it known that this plant is none other than the laudoici Seychellerum of Labillardier, a colossal palm tree which is found today only in the Seychelles Islands, not far from the eastern coast of Africa. Moreover, as Herodotus too, lets it be understood that this plant grew in the oases of northern Ethiopia, which, moreover, is confirmed by the formal testimony of Strabo, Arrian and other authors. I said that the fruit, but particularly the products, solid and liquid, copra and juice, of this palm tree, products considered very precious, were supplied in Cyrenaica and the neighboring countries, present-day Tripolitania, by caravanserais who, thus, were obliged to cross the vast deserts of Libya on foot. In support of this thesis, I have shown, x 31 degree that the fruit of the silphium, as it appears on the Cyrenian coins, is the present exact copy of the fruit of the laudoici. 2. That the description given by Theophrastus of the solid product of silphium agrees, in the most precise manner, with the characters of the parenchyma, copra, of the fruit of laudoici. 3 degrees that the drawing which appears on the antique cup called Arcesilas, 1 Paris, Leroux, in 8, 23 pages, 14 figs. This work was the subject of a report by M.G. Perot, member of the Institute, to the Academy of Inscriptions and Bells, Lettres, in the session of February 16, 1909, and it was inserted in the Revue Générale de Botanique T22, 1910, page 354-399, directed by M.G. Bonnier, member of the Academy of Sciences. To both of them I express my gratitude. Allows us to see, by its details and with great clarity, that the solid product of silphium bears a close resemblance to the copra of laudoici, and was, in short, only this substance itself. 4 degrees that the identification proposed by me is the only one which has up to now made it clear, with perfect clarity, what the ancients called the juices of the silphium, stem juice, and root juice, it est de fruit, etc. 5 degrees and finally, that the very remarkable fact to which I have called attention, namely that the fruit of the laudoici, that is to say the solid product copra, of this tree, was considered in Europe, in the Middle Ages, as a marvelous antidote having a considerable monetary value, is one more testimony that this tree is indeed the silphium, a plant whose products, in antiquity, were reputed as remedies of surprising effectiveness, and of such a high price that they formed part, as we know, of the wealth deposited at Rome in the public treasury. To these data, the value of which has been disputed. 1. Without, moreover, wishing to discuss, I am going to add a new fact, and, in my opinion, decisive too. In my work, I said that, as the examination of the types of Cyrenian coins indisputably demonstrates, the only part of the silphium that the ancients knew with certainty was the fruit of this tree. 2. But it is also very certain that, at a distant time, Libyans, neighbors of Cyrenaica, had seen a stem of silphium, or rather a portion of a stem, which had been brought to them by the caravanserais who came, as I have seen explained, from the oases of northern Ethiopia. Indeed, from the testimony of Alexandrides, 3, we know that the 1. See Indict Antiques Greek at Rome, by Derenberg, Saglio and Potier the article Silphium signed A. Reynaud. 2. I have established, in fact, that these coins, representing the silphium tree in 3 different ways, and the leaves of this tree, both in their form and in their relative arrangement, under very diverse aspects, provide the unanswerable proof that the Cyrenians had never seen the plant alive, whole and adult. 3. 4th century BC. J. C. in Fram Hist. Greek, by C. Muller, ed. Dido, 1849, T3, p. 106-107, section 4, cf. Scholl Prasek and Aristoph, ed. Dido, 1855. Ampeliots, inhabitants of a Libyan town close to the Cyrenians, had transported to Delphi, to be offered to the god Apollo, a rod of silphium. 1. Now, being established, as I have brought out in my work, that the caravanserais coming from Ethiopia crossed the deserts painfully, on foot, without mounts, and that the stem of the laudoici, an immense stem, usually measures a meter in circumference, it must be admitted, of necessity, that the portion of stem which the caravanserais brought on the backs of men to the vicinity of Gyrene, whence it was sent to Delphi, could hardly measure more than about a meter long, human strength obviously having limits. This portion of stem, normally devoid of leaves, a botanical peculiarity to be noted, presented, from distance to distance, annular scars, scars produced precisely by the leaves which had detached from this stem as the tree grew. tree. If I add that this fibrous trunk was longitudinally striated and as if grooved by the wrinkles resulting from desiccation, here is what the Libyans neighboring Cyrenaica had received from the Caravagers, here is what they had sent, in ex voto, at Delphi. We can believe that this offering, so precious by its insignia rarity, was placed in a prominent place, upright, on a pedestal. In any case, when the Cyrenians, imitating the various peoples who, at Delphi, erected, around the sanctuary of Apollo, the buildings known as treasures, arranged their own treasury, they resolved, having regard no doubt to the impossibility to obtain an entire tree, to have it sculpted and erected, towards the end of the 5th century BC, and drawing inspiration as much from the ex voto they had in front of them as from the information provided by the Caravagers, the monument of which I will now speak. 3. We know of the excavations, of such great archaeological interest, which were undertaken at Delphi by the French school of Athens. However, in the ruins of the treasury of the Cyrenians, fragments were discovered. 1. For history to have recorded this fact, it must therefore have been considered of great importance, an importance obviously due to the extraordinary rarity of the stem of the silphium. History has, moreover, noted a second similar shipment. It is a stem of silphium, the only one that could then be discovered, which was of a sort of column adorned with foliage, fragments which were brought together, thus reconstructed for the most part. This column, which is in marble, is preserved at Delphi, but a logo was taken and is on display at the Louvre Museum. 1. Enormous, for it measures nearly 3 meters in circumference at the base and more than double in height. It is surmounted by 3 caryatids supporting a tripod, and, a fact which calls for all our attention, it is certain that, as well as the T was not long in noticing too, it is a representation of the silphium plant. 3. First of all, I note that the fact that this plant is thus presented under such an imposing aspect, ruins forever the conception held of the silphium by many researchers who preceded me, who, sharing the errors of a few ancient authors, persisted and sometimes even persist in seeing, in silphium, for example, a plant of the Umbelliferae family, those humble plants with slender stems which, very rarely, manage to present, in their greatest development, the aspect of a modest shrub. 4. Certainly, it is the comparison of the subject represented by this monument with the most ordinary types of Cyrenian coins that led to seeing in it the image of the silphium, but if, from now on, we can clearly see what gigantic size the Cyrenians gave to the silphium figured on their coins, this had in no way, 1. On the landing of the stairs leading to the Victory of Samothrace Daru staircase, to the left going up, there are other casts of Delphin monuments. 2. Cf. Indeed, in Reverend Internet, of Archaeal Numismat, directed by M. Svorinus, of Athens, TX, 1907, p. 295 et the following, Bible, de l'Univ, de Paris, Périodique and degree 625, the article by Mad Karamapoulos entitled, Enelhema Ampelilon, etc., article which was pointed out to me by M.E. Potier, member of the Institute. But see also, in Revue Polit, and Liltaire, Revue Relu, December 15, 1894, page 760, call 2, an interesting passage from M. Paul Monceau's article on the Delphi excavations. 3. Dr. Berthelin, back from Greece, is kind enough to point out to me the description that Mr. Karamapoulos, F.R. of Antiquities, in his Guide to Delphi, 1909, p. 1920, gives this monument. 4. These researchers should have noticed that, to consider silphium as an umbellifer, and, moreover, as an umbellifer growing abundantly in Cyrenaica, is necessarily to admit that the Cyrenians would have seriously undertaken the long crossing of the Mediterranean, and pompously transported to Delphi to be offered as a gift to the god Apollo, a thin wand. Let us know which plant this silphium was. Now, I am going to show that the thesis which I had defended in 1908 and which considered the silphium to be the Lodoici Seychellorum, is confirmed by the examination of the monument in question. I said, in my previous work, that the Lodoici is the most majestic tree of the palm family, its trunk being able to reach up to 40 meters in height. Well, the monument erected at Delphi by the Gerenians, and which very certainly represents the silphium, is none other, quite rightly and as can be seen, than the representation of a colossal palm tree. Certainly, we will agree that here is already proof that, if various ancient authors, 1. Deceived by the appearances offered by the silphium plant on Cyrenian coins, believed, and made believe so many modern people, that this silphium was an umbellifer, the time has come to recognize with me that, from the 5th century BC, the Gerenians, informed by the Caravagers, knew perfectly well, for their part, that the silphium was a palm tree, too. But that's not all. I said again that the Lodoicea presents a trunk 1 meter round, cylindrical, erect, marked along its entire length with annual scars areas separated from each other by intervalleys of about 12 centimeters. Scars formed by the imprint of the petiole of the leaves which have detached as the tree has grown. Well, if we examine the colossal palm carved by the Geranians, we see that the trunk is likewise cylindrical, erect, and marked, from distance to distance, by the annular scars of which I have just given the origin. On the casting, 1, I have already pointed out that at least one of them, Theophrastus, vi. 3, 1, knew that silphium was a plant of the highest species. 2, cf. Fennel Miller, Nu Mismal, del on Frick, Copenhagen, 1860, the type of coin and degrees 4, already mentioned by me, which seems to represent a palm tree. This type is one of the oldest. Louvre Museum. These scars are, from the base to the bouquet of leaves, 3 in number, the circumference of the trunk being approximately 3 meters, and, on the restored monument, completely redone by the draftsman, 1, who has almost doubled the height of the trunk, these scars are 6 in number, and thus, all things considered, the characters presented by the stem of the palm tree sculpted at Delphi by the Geranians are indeed those which are observed on the stem of the palm tree of the Seychelles Islands. But there is still more. I have said that the leaf of the Lodoicea is immense, oval, and divided unequally around its circumference. Well, these are precisely the characters presented by the leaves or palms which, on the monument of the Geranians, crown, falling in elegant curves, the top of the trunk. These leaves, 7 in number, are immense, they are oval, and I have not counted on them less than 14 divisions, unequal, on each side of the midrib. And so, and without taking note of the slightest bias, it is impossible, one will agree, not to be struck by the remarkable concordance which exists between the characters of the Lodoicea of the Seychelles Islands and those presented by the silphium cut in marble by the Cyrenians. Now, does this mean that this sculptural work is, in all respects, exact? Not at all, and several errors were committed which, moreover, are easy to explain. Thus, as I have already said, the Geranians, having never seen the silphium, that is to say the Lodoicea, living and adult, believed, in very good faith, that leaves were growing along the stem which had been brought to Delphi, the base of these leaves being implanted on the annular scars which mark this stem, and this is why, on the palm tree which they had sculpted, they applied, on the trunk, small sessile leaves which seemed to emerge from each of the scars in question. Thus again, and no doubt for an aesthetic purpose, they have 1 cf. excavations at Delphi, under the direction of M.t. Homel, 892-1903, in F degrees, T2, PL15, CPL9 restoration of the Turnus of Apollo, the aspect of this column among the Delphian monuments Bible Nat, F degrees Greek letters Eta 1027. 1027. Formed in regular grooves the more or less deep wrinkles which furrowed the trunk longitudinally by the effect of desiccation. Thus finally, having never seen the whole leaves of the silphium, that is to say of the Lodoicea, organs which, moreover, were indifferent to them since they made no use of them, 1. They are limited to representing them on the basis of the information provided by the caravantures, that is to say, as I have explained, immense, oval, with numerous unequal divisions, and forming an elegant bouquet of palms in the middle top of stem, but certain details lack exactness, whence it follows that these leaves somewhat recall those of the acanthus, 2, and certain parts have been omitted, such as the long petiole which, in reality, supports each leaf, petiole which, moreover, the sculptor would have had, it seems, some difficulty in reproducing reduce. But it must be said that mathematical precision was important possible to obtain since, I will not stop repeating it, the Cyrenians had never seen the silphium, that is to say the living, whole and adult Lodoicea. This precision, moreover, would add nothing to this truth which, thanks to the study of the monument of the Cyrenians at Delphi, I believe I have definitively established, was other than the Lodoicea Seychellarum of La Billardière, 3, 1. I have, in fact, shown in my work, that the belief of the ancients in the use of the silphium leaf clearly came from an error, certain authors, like Theophrastus, having taken the Libyan word full and designating the solid part, copra, of the Lodoicea fruit, for the Greek word fullen meaning leaf, 2. This is why the monument received, when it was discovered, the name of acanthus column, according to me, the Corinthian column, with its fluted shaft, with its capital decorated with so-called acanthus leaves, was inspired by the Cyrenian monument. Callimachus's work would therefore have an origin quite different from that attributed to him by Vitruvius IV. 1. 3. Undoubtedly, some authors will still be able to maintain, for example, that the silphium has disappeared from the surface of the globe. This is an opinion whose value is quite debatable, as shown by M.c. Jorat, Acad des Iriser, May 17, 1912. Among the plants of which Pliny speaks, there are some which have not been identified. Who then will prevent these same authors from maintaining that these plants, a whole Ilor, have also completely disappeared?